Hi everybody, all over the world. A early Happy New Year. And to those of you who are on the other side, already in January 1, post Happy New Year. So here we are. Hi, I'm Louix Dempriey, aka Bhagavan Sri Pranananda or just Pranananda, and we are broadcasting live all over the planet right now from Colorado Springs, Colorado, where we are holding our annual New Year's Eve retreat that I've been doing for well over 20 years, since the late 90s. And last year we were in Vietnam, year before that Mexico, before that Bali, and this year Colorado Springs at the foot of the Rockies. And we're about to go into my annual divine dispensation to humanity, which I'll explain more as we get there. But first, I would like to spend a few minutes reviewing 2025, which last year on this very night, on New Year's Eve 24, I proclaimed this year as the year of forgiveness. And I showed people how these energies would play out on the planet and what was available to people, and gave people tools and instruments and vehicles and exercises and directions to take in their lives in the two primary categories of forgiveness, and that is forgiveness of others, those you feel and have found to be your betrayers, your perpetrators, your adversaries, the ones who in your heart and mind have wronged you or harmed you or caused you trouble or strife. And then the second bastion, the second category of forgiveness is self-forgiveness. And so through that discourse a year ago, I invited people to look really deeply and honestly in their lives to see in various capacities in both those categories where those existed for you, areas in your own life where you really, there's a need and a calling to forgive yourself. There's a very famous novel by Nathaniel Hawthorne called The Scarlet Letter, and I use that metaphorically, where people have been carrying and wearing that scarlet letter, where they have just carried this brand on themselves, where they have chosen to, carry this form of self-condemnation, self-denigration, and refuse to forgive themselves. And just moments prior, we just had a 2-hour coaching and counseling session here in the room, where I was sharing with the 50 people who were here with me about we using one individual's life experience through a series of circumstances that happened over the course of his life, and I was able to point out and show how and why the lack of self-forgiveness was harming him, holding him back, and stopping him, impeding him from being his true divine self, and from having the fullness. He's in a rite of passage right now, a huge wormhole of transformation, if you will, that ripples out and affects his life, those around him, especially his children. And I was showing him how the lack of forgiveness, his own lack of self-forgiveness, was impeding and mitigating what he's striving to achieve in this rite of passage he's in now. And I pointed out, I'm sharing this because it's a really powerful tool for people to see and vehicle for people to see. I showed 3 areas in his life why not just him, but most people choose to not forgive themselves. And one is guilt over choices, actions, decisions, words spoken in the past that at that time you may or may not have known that they were poor choices, non-loving choices, less than your best, not divine, whatever phrase you want to use to describe it. Guilt over that. Then there's shame over those choices made, especially when the consequence of those choices, and in his particular case, affected his children in non-harmonious ways that were detrimental and harmful to them. And so there's a shame about that, a guilt about that. And then the third category, and again, not just this individual, but for most people, what gets in the way and blocks that self-forgiveness is a belief, a deep-seated belief that most people hold, that you need to be punished, that you should not be forgiven and should not forgive yourself, and worse, you need to be punished for what you did. Now, granted, many people do suffer from their choices because all choices bear consequences. But sometimes if people don't see that it really the consequences fell on them, but more so other people, there's a belief that you need to be punished for it, and why should you get off the hook? And what I proceeded to show him and show everyone in the room, and hopefully show all you listening, is that you can still forgive yourself, and you're supposed to, because that's the meaning of unconditional love, and that's the true meaning of forgiveness, to return to giving love as before the event or events happened. And it's what God is asking of us. It's what God wants, and it's what furthers the plot. One of the axioms of life that I teach and live and practice and invite everyone into is as a way of being, is to always give another human being the opportunity to recreate himself as perfect love in any given moment. That's true forgiveness. That's true compassion, true empathy, true unconditional love. And that applies also to ourselves. We need to do that. We're supposed to do that. God wants us to do that, and that's the way we're built. And so I asked this individual to let's replace the word punishment with the word restitution. You can still make restitution. First of all, everything is forgivable, everything is redeemable. The world doesn't usually believe that or practice that or teach that, but it's true. The level of the absolute, everything is transmutable. Everything is forgivable. And while some things can't be undone, like let's say your choice led to someone's losing his or her life, you running a stop sign or running a red light, and then someone died in a car accident and you lived. You think that's unforgivable. No, everything's forgivable and everything's redeemable. Will that life come back? No. But everything can be transmuted and make restitution. Remember that famous, powerful scene in the movie Gandhi when that man came before the master and said, Gandhi, I've done the unforgivable. I've taken a human life. Why should I be forgiven? That can't be undone. And Gandhi looked at him in the midst of one of his hunger strikes, and when he was almost dead himself. And he said, yes, my dear son, he said, that life cannot be brought back. He said, however, you can make restitution and you can transmute this. Your action took a life, so how you transmute and make restitution is you now save a life. And he said, and I ask that you go find an orphan and adopt this young man and love him and raise him as your son and pour all the love you have into this. So by saving a life, you make restitution for the life you took. And that's just a beautiful example of the proof that everything is forgivable, everything is redeemable. And so understanding these three primary truths about the guilt, the shame, and the belief that there's a need for self-punishment or punishment, taking those out of the equation and understanding that you still can forgive yourself, and it is what God is asking. And the restitution, we're replacing the word punishment. When people know that their choices really harm someone else, instead of punishment, make the restitution be one of the forms. Make it be, I will change. I will heal myself. I will become that loving expression, a better human being than I've ever been, a better, kinder, more loving human being. And that will ripple out and bless, first and foremost, the people closest to you. And then it'll ripple out and bless others in concentric rings and move out throughout the whole planet. Because even though there are 8 billion plus or minus people on the planet, at the same time, parallel reality, we're also all one collective being. So anything you do to heal yourself, to uplift yourself, to become kinder, more loving, touches and blesses everyone on the planet. First and foremost, those closest to you, but it ripples out and touches everyone on the planet and changes the whole planet. So replace punishment with that promise. And that gives you permission now and the empowerment to forgive yourself. Now in forgiving others, some people, as we spent the last couple hours reflecting on that, and I've spent a lot of time this year working with groups on this subject. In the forgiveness of others, one of the primary reasons why people have held themselves back from forgiving others is that ego personality, that ego righteous mind wants justice, wants its pound of flesh. You need to pay for what you did. And in that, it's an understandable thought and emotion. It's totally understandable. I get that. However, it's not true at the level of the absolute, at the level of God consciousness. Because justice for what someone else said or did is not your job. And the laws and lords of karma in the universe takes care of that very well all by itself. Your job, every one of us, our jobs, is to heal ourselves and to become whole and loving and pure and kind. That's our job. What someone else did or does or says or said, that's between them and God, between them and the universe holds them accountable if they don't hold themselves accountable. To make that your responsibility not only is ignorant and very self-detrimental and self-harming, it also embroils you, binds you to the karma of their non-loving actions. Why would you want that? When you release that, it's like, that's between you and God. You have to answer for that. I have to answer for the non-loving choices I did and made, and I have to answer for my actions in this world. And when you divest yourself of having that attachment to, you need to get this, you need to apologize, you need to pay back, you need to, I need justice, I need to see justice served, that embroils you in and binds you to the karma of their non-loving choices and actions, and that harms you. And it has no impact on them. That's you harming yourself. So letting go of that need for justice, the need for someone else to get it, to admit, to confess, that's self-harming and it holds you back. And that's one of the primary reasons why people refuse to forgive others. And that's none of your business. So once you get that and understand that and adopt that, now you're empowered to, do as some of the great masters have said and demonstrated of, find compassion, forgiveness, mercy, empathy, and understanding. Also, what helps empower you to forgive others, that's one, that's not your, holding them accountable and demanding justice is not your job, and nor are you capable of it. Maybe people think they are, but you're not. It's only going to make your situation worse. But secondly, that thought just raced out of my head. But secondly is that, it'll come back to me in a second. The justice is not your job, and your job is only to heal yourself. I have to come back to that one. That's okay. Let me keep going, because I'm on the clock here. We got to count down to midnight. But it's about giving yourself permission to forgive others and return to giving love as before, because it's what God asks of us, and we have the power and the ability to do that. And that's what gives us inner peace. It makes us whole, and realizing that there's a higher path to take. So that's what this year of forgiveness was about. And oftentimes, we didn't do a lot of it tonight. Oftentimes we're working in the microcosm tonight with the individuals in the room, but usually I'll often look on the global scale, and we'll look in the primary arenas of life in the world. The world of politics, the world of finance, the world of business, the world of entertainment, and to see the world of celebrity, the world of social media, and see how these things played out in the world, which, again, we have limited time right here, but take a look at that, reflect back over the course of the year where you saw this playing out, where, for example, situations that happened on the world scene where that forgiveness happened and where it didn't, where it was withheld, and the price of that, the consequence of that, which is never good when the forgiveness is withheld or refused. And take a look and see in the world where it did happen, and where grace, the descent of grace happened, and transmutation happened, and blessings happened, and upliftment. And that's very valuable to see. Now, so that's what this year of 2025 was about. And with these, I said earlier, I would explain a little bit about the divine dispensation I give each year. What I look for is what's most needed on the planet at this time, in terms of world events and in terms of the evolution of the species, of humanity as a consciousness, as a collective consciousness, based on what has happened so far, what's happening right now, what's happening, prophetically in a revelatory way, looking into the future of what's coming. So I create an amalgamation of looking at all those things and what's really needed at this time, and then create this dispensation, which is a blessing to bestow on the planet and on humanity, that creates a vortex and an opening. And when people engage and work with this and use it, there's a tremendous synergistically expansive and accelerated opportunity for growth, spiritual, personal growth and healing and transformation in one's life, which then you see, again, from concentric circles, ripple out into the planet, because it is what is being called for at this time. And what happens is when people align with this and work with this and get involved and get in the game, so to speak, what happens is there's a phrase they use in esoteric teaching. This is a wind rush, a descent of divine grace comes to source and empower your efforts in that regard, and that expands and accelerates that synergistic blessing in a really profound way. Now, these new dispensations come every year, and I create them geared on what's needed and so forth, as I described, which does not negate or terminate the ones that came prior. Each one joins with and stands on the shoulders of the ones to come, Now, that having been said, looking at all that transpired in 2025, and here we are, New Year's Eve, with just 10, 15 minutes to go into the new year, I have spent a lot of time, looking at what's playing out on the planet right now and what's coming, in the near future, and what would most, number one, stand on the shoulders of, further empower this forgiveness and stand on the shoulders of it, as well as what's the next logical step that continues to build, and also dovetail that with what's really needed at this time. Now, in looking, taking a snapshot of the collective, of the planet, and looking at what's going on in the world right now, some of the things that I see that called forth what I'm about to speak as the dispensation. Look at, a temperature check of the climate of humanity and human consciousness, and what, independent of political or religious beliefs or affiliations, I believe most people would agree that what most people can see very easily on the planet is right now there's a lot of adversarial energy. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of opposition. There's a lot of disharmony, warring, like even here in the United States, whether you're Republican or Democrat, both parties have now become so combative and enraged and in opposition that they find they're having a lot of difficulty anyone getting anything done, anyone finding their way to truth, to harmony, and it's now become more about the fight than about running the country. So it doesn't even matter who's in what party and what you believe. Now it's, and you look in social media, the amount of social media that's predicated on tearing people down, destroying people's lives. There's so much enmity. And yes, there's tons of love around too, but what gets most of the attention at this present time is the adversarial energy in the world, the competition, the corruption, the fighting, the tearing down of each other. And I look at this and I see this is counterintuitive, it's contraindicated, and it's demoralizing and it's debilitating and it's harmful to who we are as divine beings, as incarnations of love created, by God, in God's image as love. This works in opposition to all of that, who we are and who we're supposed to be. And so taking the year of forgiveness, which, is up and running and hopefully will continue for everyone, and looking at that climate, that temperature check right now and what's really needed, putting it all together, and what I saw and see and still see and now proclaim for 2026 is that for planet Earth, this blessing, this divine blessing and vortex that we're creating here and that I'm inviting all of you into is for this next year of 2026 to be the year of partnership. That's what's needed. That's what will heal this wound. That's what will close the chasm. That's what will bring the opposing forces together. It doesn't mean that one side needs to win. It doesn't mean that one party needs to be right. Everyone's entitled to have their own beliefs. That's part of being free. Whether you're in a country that's free or not, there's still a personal, internal freedom. Freedom, political freedom in countries only affects your ability to express your beliefs. But every human being has an inalienable right to believe what you want and choose what you want and have what you want inside, in your heart, in your mind. So a year of partnership will mitigate and dissolve that war, close the gap, bridge the gap, and bring people together regardless of beliefs. And so the invitation is, number one, to know and accept this and welcome it into your life, and to be on a course of, like a treasure hunt, so to speak, a quest, to look in areas of your life where this coming year, where you can create partnership. Now, there's the obvious place, and this is the most courageous and probably the last place people want to look, and maybe the last place some will look, but I'm going to go there first, because, that which you most resist is that which you most need to do. Excuse me. In the areas of your greatest resistance are the areas where you live furthest from God. So let's go right after Goliath to tackle the beast. So my invitation is to look first and foremost in the relationships in your life where you have the most adversarial energy, the most enmity, the most separation and opposition, where the most disharmony and discord and fallout has happened. Again, I can't make you do it, but I can invite you. That's where you'll make the greatest gains. And it's like that principle I shared earlier tonight. When a child is getting bullied at school, the dad will usually tell them, well, go take down the bully and then no one else will bother you. If you go for the worst one, all the other ones, you cure all that at the same. So it's that same principle. Go for the gold. Go for the greatest areas, the greatest, most visible, palpable areas where the disharmony and the separation and the fallout has happened, and tackle those and strive to create partnership. Whatever that looks like. Partnership is a broad word. Now, it could be, coming together to make amends. It could be just extending the olive branch, or something as simple as reopening communication. I had an example in my life, someone who created a huge betrayal of our 30-year friendship. This person was as close to me as any of my biological siblings. And a huge betrayal happened. We were best of friends for 30 years. And then he did something so vile and so cruel and horrible to me, which I immediately forgave him for. And then after doing that, he was the perpetrator. He was the one who committed the act, and then he never spoke to me again. And it's been over 2 years since we've spoken, and we were family. And so, and I knew, since I knew the dispensation that was coming, I knew all of that was coming, I said, you know what? I'm going to extend the olive branch. And so, and I was first honoring his choice, because out of my love for him, to not want to speak to me, even though he was the one who created the betrayal. And I just wished him a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday and all of that. And he replied. And it ended at that moment. And who knows what will come of it? Maybe nothing. But this is an example. I did that as an example. And I'm inviting you to look at the areas where you've had this fallout. So whether it's making amends, apologizing, making restitution, extending the olive branch, reopening communication. Now, this is also a year, and that's in mending fences and healing wounds and closing gaps. Now, the concept of partnership again, that because of that energy, that descent of grace, that divine dispensation, this is also for those of you who have been contemplating ventures, this is a golden opportunity if you're creating a business venture where partnership will be sourced and fed by the divine. It doesn't mean just go randomly pick anybody, but if you're contemplating it, there's a blessing there that's available that will bless and empower that. And partnership doesn't necessarily mean business or financial investment. It can, but it could also be a project. Look to create partnership. Maybe there's something you wanted to build. Include someone. Maybe there's something you wanted to learn. Maybe invite someone to take a class with you. Find these little ways to create partnership in your life, and the blessings you will see will be so, so profound. Now, and again, this is an energy, a divine descent of grace from the heavens that is enveloping and sourcing and feeding the whole planet, and it's available for people to use, and you'll have tremendous gains and growth in your life if you do this. So I've created an empowerment tool, a crystal that I have selected to do this. Now, normally I choose a specific crystal in a family of crystal for it. Now, this is not a family of crystal, but a type of crystal. And the stone, I have a tiny one here, so you can't really see it on camera. But the crystal that holds this energy and embodies it is what's known in the crystal world as a twinned crystal. So one that's made of two stones that are stuck together, that are grown together. I have a little tiny one here, so you probably can't see it. And it can be any type of crystal. Now, they're very common in quartz. They might be common in I know that's one family where they are. But a twinned crystal holds that energy of partnership. And so I'm inviting people to go out and, they perhaps look for one. It doesn't have to be big or expensive, but that will fuel and feed that energy and help in that regard. That'll be a very powerful talisman and token that will help you hold that vision and keep summoning and calling forth that energy and imbue it into all your choices and actions and endeavors this year. Now, we are coming into our countdown in a moment. So I've got my countdown clock coming. We're going to take a short break because we always have a little toast here. We're going to get our sparkling apple cider or sparkling pear juice, whichever one we got this year. All right. Hi, we're back. We never left, but audio. Sorry, I'm hooked to my collar there. All right, so we are back, and we're under 2 minutes. So as we're going to jump into our countdown when we get to like 30 seconds or so. We got about a minute left before we start our countdown to our new year. Send each and every one of you, may you have the best year ever. I wholeheartedly invite you into this divine dispensation so you can watch the magic and the miracle and the beauty unfold in your life. Let us always remember to be kind to others, to think with your heart, to give everyone the opportunity to recreate him, herself as love in any given moment. And let's aspire to, is that a minute? Oh, hang on one sec. Yeah. Can I see it? Thanks. I need it more than you do. So let's all, strive to aspire to live those divine tenets and divine character traits. So remember, the changes you make in your life and the choices you make, remember the power of one. It's all up to one. Your choices to be kind and loving, they do really count and matter and ripple out into the world. So we're getting down to just under 30 seconds. I won't bore you with 30 seconds of counting, but maybe we can get a few more downstream. So I send you my love, my blessing for an amazing year filled with kindness and love. 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! Feliz Año Nuevo, felice, buon Capodanno to each and every one of you. All right. Now, beloveds, I wish you all the best. We're still rolling, Ron, right? I wish you all the best. May you have an amazing year. May love flood your heart and spread the joy, spread the love. Let's have the most amazing year ever. Be kind, forgiving, compassionate of others. And remember that anyone and everyone who speaks or acts in non-loving ways, what helps you find compassion, empathy, and forgiveness is knowing that they're doing it from hurt, from how they were hurt and not treated kindly. Do your best to always remember that, and that will always help you be compassionate and empathic and forgiving, while still being able to maintain self-love, self-dignity, self-worth. It doesn't mean you don't have boundaries, but we can still be kind and forgiving, compassionate. To the year of partnership, may your partnerships bloom and flourish. May your business endeavors be blessed, and find ways to create partnership in your friends, in your family, in business, in projects, and watch the world heal and transform before your eyes. We are going to do my annual tradition where we all go around and toast and hug each other. And hugging the divine way, heart to heart, the world has learned to hug in separation by going to the left so that our hearts don't connect. So something I started 30 years ago was hug to the right. So your hearts touch, you'll feel the difference. That's a way to, again, bridge the gap, create partnership, create connection, and bring us all together in love. Namaste. Happy New Year. God bless you. I bless you. I love you. And we'll chat soon. Take care. Namaste.